Hi, everybody. I'm Ben. I lead our customer success team at Custora. What that means is I'm responsible for the group of us who are doing our best every day to help our customers make best possible use and get outsized value out of our technology and out of our team. One really interesting thing to me about today is that there's a thread through every single session so far. It's lurking in the background, it's implicit. It has to do with this question of what is a customer-centric organization. And if I'm not that today, how do I get to be that in the future? I think many of the stories and wonderful programs we've heard about today are from brands who were kind of born into the era of customer centricity and this kind of who they are at their core. Of course, for most brands in the world, it is more of a form of strategic adaptation. And one of the wonderful things about being on customer success at Custora is we get to work with amazing teams like the team at Vince as they figure out how to capitalize on the opportunity of being customer-centric, and in this case, evolving from a largely wholesale and retail-dominated past to an omni-channel future where they actually own the customer relationship that they didn't own before. So what we want to do in this session is to go below surface depth on that and hear from the Vince team about some of the details of how that change has come about, how they see it going in the future, and what kinds of tools and teams and specific changes are necessary as part of making that macro change happen. So thank you both very much for joining this conversation. Perhaps we could start by hearing a bit about yourselves, and I think you have pretty high unaided awareness in this room, but an introduction of Vince as well would be very helpful.
Sure, we can do that. So yeah, I'm Stacy. I lead the marketing team at Vince, and the brand was founded in 2002, primarily with women's apparel, and we launched in kind of all of the major luxury department stores. And in the past almost 2 decades, we've evolved. We now include men's apparel as well, footwear, which is a pretty significant part of our business today, handbags, home, accessories. So yeah, it's really evolved into a true lifestyle brand. We have 48 full-price retail stores and 15 outlets. Certainly, a growing e-commerce business. And most recently, we launched our own mono-brand app and a subscription rental service called Unfold. So yeah, that takes us to 2019.
Thank you. So, customer centricity at Vince. Jules, perhaps you could catch us up, maybe past to present, and then we'll save future for later in the talk. How has it come about? What has it meant to you?
Sure. So if you look at Vince, as Stacy says, we were originally a wholesale company. We then started to open our own stores, but we were still very much a wholesale business. And we have had our ups, and then we hit a slight down. And during the down, we basically had to take a step back and work out what do we want to be and how do we get the greatest level of control over our path forward. And the way to do that was to become a DTC-first business. If you're a wholesale-led business, ultimately what you're doing is you're producing product and then you're giving it to someone else and they are creating the story and the vision around your business. They own all the customer relationships, and so you're beholden to them. And ultimately, that's a scary place to be. Think about it in your own life. You sit there and you give your control over to your life. Well, I have, because I have children, so I've already done that. But normal people want to go, no, I want to retain control as much as I can. And so for us, that was the sort of change, was this decision, let's be a DTC first business. And the way we did that was we'd come out of survival mode, we needed a growth strategy, we took the leadership team on an offsite and we sat in a room for 36 hours. Is that right? Yes, 36 hours, day and a half, anyway. And sort of looked at our navels, looked at all the blue fluff that was in there, and basically came to the conclusion that the right thing for us was to be DTC-led. And what does that mean? It means you have to be a customer-centric business. And so that was really the start of it.
I think I've heard you refer to that as the light bulb moment. Is that the moment?
Well, I'm not sure if I have a light bulb in my belly button, but it's somewhere there. Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, I don't actually know if it was a light bulb. I think, so I've been there 5 years, and in the 5 years I've been at Vince, Stacy and I have been talking about the customer. It's part of,
I think it might have been a light bulb for some other key stakeholders in the room. I think it's something that
yeah, that's fair.
it didn't just occur to us one day. I think obviously that's, I think as, on the marketing and digital side, we've understood that that's the way things were moving, and it required but a large investment and buy-in from the organization, and so.
But I think one of the things, and this is where in some ways we were lucky, I suppose, or unlucky, we didn't really have a choice. What we knew was that we had to change our business direction, and there was, we had to change. The path we were on was not a path that was going to lead us ultimately to success, and that in some ways helps. When you've got your back against the wall, you have to think really hard. I think it's harder if you're in a situation where your business is doing well to then fundamentally change direction. That's a hard decision because there's a lot of risk associated with us. For us, the risk wasn't in some ways that high, if that makes sense. That's where we are.
Yeah. And we've talked a little bit in the past about how this kind of big transformational change is incremental in nature, that it doesn't happen overnight, that you sort of have to win hearts and minds, sometimes, one by one, and that it's more of a long game. Is that an accurate way of describing your experience?
Yeah, I definitely would say so. Even after having made the decision that's what we want to be, the majority of our revenue is still in wholesale, and wholesale is still going to be a huge part of our business, and we can't just walk away from that. And the other piece of it is to change, you have to prove yourself, and you can't just go, okay, we're going to move all our investment and we're going to stick it over here, because that doesn't make any sense. So one of the things that we've been very lucky in our relationship with Custora is you guys have been able to help us prove out points along the way. So for example, we started to use the VIP audience that was created in Custora to use it as lookalikes for our digital marketing. So in paid social, we started using that, and over the course of the last year, we've seen a 98% increase in the number of click-throughs and about a 65% drop in the cost per session. And suddenly people are starting to see, there's value in this data, and we can do things with this. And so that starts to make, we've got the hearts, but now the minds come with it. And with that mind, CFO, who is clearly very mind-driven, tends to be going, prove your case. And so with those proofs, we're now talking about other investments that we have to make in order to be truly a DTC business.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I think you've hit on one great category of proof point, which is what's happening with a particular segment. Stacy, we've talked a lot about how this kind of different approach has resulted in your viewing your cohorts differently, your segments differently. Jules just mentioned one, which is the VIP segment. What other segments or cohorts have emerged as particularly either meaningful in terms of the insights that they're giving you or actionable from a marketing tactical perspective?
Yeah, one of our goals, as we, kind of started on the journey together was really looking at our full price and our discount-sensitive customers differently. And so that was really one of the first areas that we approached and started to really test and learn. And through, working with the Custora team, we really identified these three key segments, and our customer base was kind of split evenly across the three, being, a really full-price customer segment, what we call discount opportunists, and the discount-sensitive customers. So those customers that really are only shopping discount versus the discount opportunists, are some of our best customers fit into that segment, and they really shop both full price and discount. And so we started to think about how can we treat these customers differently, and we, over the summer it's a really promotional time in retail, and so we took a historically heavy promotional moment for the brand, and we said, well, let's treat our full price customers differently and not, kind of hit them over the head with 6 days worth of promotional messaging. And so we segmented those customers out and actually promoted full price in season product. The logic being that these customers actually probably, this product that's marked down, these customers probably shopped that product 4 months ago when it was new, because they are our most, the customers that are most motivated by new product versus being price sensitive. And we actually saw great results. We saw that these customers compared to the control, they were shopping full price, they had higher conversion, they had higher average order values, and we still, met all of our promotional goals for the time period. So, I mean, I think that was, again, just talking about how to incrementally, prove the value of, just serving the customer content that's more relevant for them. So that, that was kind of the start.
Yeah, a valuable proof point to encourage further investment. That's great. So let's talk a little bit more about the change management side of this. Our impression, having worked with you, is that it's really your team that's driving this change. But tell us a bit about other teams' roles in this and how they come on board and how they eventually kind of join you in moving this general strategic agenda forward.
Yeah, so I suppose the first part is we're quite lucky in that both our CEO and our board have bought into this. The board, to the extent where I was in a board meeting literally 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about some of the things we want to do, and there was this big initiative, and our chairman of our board is a guy called Mark Leader, and and we said, well, we'll start in July, and he goes, why are you waiting for July? You should go now. And we're going, well, it's a lot to do. And he's going, no, now. And then, okay, so we moved on to our next topic, which was around this making us a customer-centric. And he listens to what we says, and he goes, don't give a monkeys about what we just talked about before. I want to do this now. And so having that level of sort of executive drive behind it makes winning hearts and souls isn't really a question. There's a organizational mandate that this is what we're going to do. But I think if you look at the other piece that for us has been very helpful is we're not actually the only people doing this. This is not a unique strategy. There are a lot of other retailers and a lot of other brands that have come to the conclusion that this is the thing to do. And so it's not something that's particularly frightening. It's a lot of conversation out there about how you have to take ownership of your brand, and really only brands are going to be the ones that survive, that have a strong connection to their customers. So with all that, it's been relatively easy to get other people to engage. And, I think one of the things that I would definitely say about us as an organization is we're lucky in that the level of cross-functional support is very high. We're not a particularly politicized organization. We're not particularly siloed, partly because of size. So that's made it easier, I think, for us.
That's great. Have there been any particularly challenging points or places where you've run into the most resistance, either because of skepticism around the ideas or attachment to old ways or anything like that?
I mean, I think obviously there's a level of certain areas of the business feel challenged. I think the wholesale team, it's a hard message to hear where you're a wholesale-led company and now we're going to be a DTC-first company. But Brendan, our CEO, has been very clear, and he's from a wholesale background, so he fundamentally understands that business. And he's been very clear that we need wholesale. We're not going to be a DTC-only company. We're going to be a DTC-led company, and wholesale is still going to be a critical place for us to engage with customers, both from a brand perspective, but also in terms of products. It's a channel that we have to support. So I think that is the area that probably felt the pressure most. And to give Jill, who leads wholesale for us, her credit, she's also responsible for buying on the DTC side, so she has a foot in both camps, and so she's been very clear to support this and push it through. So no, I think we've been relatively lucky. I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, and I think it's less about resistance and more, I think it's the incremental proof. And so I think sometimes when you say, okay, we're going to take, one of our biggest promotions of the year, and we're not gonna message this to 20% of our customers. I think is that moment of, what's gonna happen? And so I think it is just about continuing to test and learn and improve, and so I think that's but I think so far all of the testing has come back, and we just continue to learn that it's we can't just speak to all of our customers in the same way, and it's not more isn't better. It's actually what's unique for that customer and what's the message that's going to speak to them, rather than just more is more.
Absolutely. By the way, it is cold up here. I wish they had let us have the actual for the fireside chat.
I don't know, it's 90 degrees outside. Come on.
Did you all know that it's over 90 degrees outside? It's insane. So let's talk about the machine side of this. So obviously pulling off this kind of change connotes a whole set of changes you need to make to your marketing, your IT stack, to the toolkit. I think Custora is one small part of that. It's a big part of the strategy, right? How have you thought about approaching that task, the task of kind of retooling, and how have you gone about prioritizing what you choose to pick off first in that category?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for us, and we knew this kind of, as we launched our partnership with Custora, but I think it's become even more clear to us in the past year that today the partnership, the efforts are distorted towards our e-commerce business because we have 100% capture rate. We know all about our customers in the digital space, and because we have a lot of legacy technologies in our stores, we can't say the same thing for the rate at which we're capturing customer data in our retail stores, and so that's definitely been our Achilles heel. And but I think the work that we've been doing has actually helped to expedite the conversation around updating all of our technology in our stores. That was kind of on the roadmap of, okay, well that could be that's part of the 3-year plan, and that's actually kind of moved up to become mission critical when we actually realized how little information we're really capturing from our retail customers, and how you can't really be customer centric without the customer data. So that it really has helped us make a case for how critical it really is to have the proper technologies in storage, to have the right kind of CRM database for partners like Custora to sit on top of. And so we've been able to make a lot of incremental changes, but I think we're very confident that in the next 18 months from now, everything we're talking about is going to be that much more powerful as we just really invest in making sure that we're capturing much closer to 100% of our customer data across both channels.
3-year plan, long game.
Long game.
Love it.
It's been expedited.
Yeah. That's great. So I know for a fact that there are some people in the audience here whose organizations are earlier in this process of pivoting from wholesale to primarily D2C. And also, of course, everyone else is interested in ways that they can help their organization adapt more quickly. Based on your experience so far, what would be your advice to any of those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we've kind of stated, it's, pivoting towards, being data-led and customer-centric. It's really difficult to do without making an investment in that area and really having organizational buy-in. I think it's, again, Jules and I didn't have a light bulb moment. It's something we've been talking about for a long time. But 4 or 5 years ago, the organization just wasn't there. There were other priorities. There was other, areas of focus. And, I think it was a bit of the right timing. But I think it's, I think we've been chipping away at this conversation for quite some time. And I think for us, it was, I think timing was critical. It was a time where, as an organization, we made the decision to actually pull out of 2 of our largest wholesale accounts, Saks and Bloomingdale's, which was a huge pivot for the organization. And so I think it was not that difficult to convince key stakeholders that, okay, well, if we're leaving all of these millions of dollars on the table, how are we going, and we're going to be DTC-led, how are we actually going to be customer-centric and data-driven? And so I think timing is really important, but also, educating. I think, we talk about these things all day, every day. We're talking about the customer journey and the customer experience and segmentation and customization. And I think those are things that perhaps people in other functional roles understand as a customer experience, right? Like, you understand when you have a great experience, whether online or on store, and it feels modern and it feels, like it was created for you. But they're not having these these conversations around the customer journey every day. So it definitely takes a lot of education. I think we've spent a lot of our time and as we were having conversations with your teams, as we started our partnership a year and a half ago, really, leaning on your teams to also come in and educate our key stakeholders, because it definitely is an education in, as you said, winning the hearts and minds of some of the critical decision makers.
Right, and having all the patience required to do that. That's great, thank you. How about you, Jules?
I think, Stacy's absolutely right. It is about taking your time about it, and I think we were lucky that our digital business was continuing to grow while some of our other channels were not necessarily seeing the same trajectory. And a lot of what we were doing on the digital side is because we have the data, you're able to do things that almost intuitively that are customer-centric. And so I think that helped give us some sort of credence or credibility, if you like, within the organization, because we were showing and proving the success here, and therefore could we take the lessons from this part of the business and sort of show them across the way. So I definitely think that was part of it. I think the other piece is we also came to the realization that it wasn't a conversation about technology. That a lot of people sit there and they go, you want to be data-centric, well, we've got to collect data, we need databases, and we need servers, and we need this, and we have to put it in the cloud, and whatever else, and on it goes. And actually, that's really not what it's about. It's about changing processes and mindsets and really thinking about what does that experience look like? And if the experience is going to look like this, what data do I need in order to be able to understand this about that customer so that I can give them the right thing at the right time in the right place? And so it truly is a business change process. It's not about technology. And I think a lot of places I've worked, the conversation has always started with technology, and I don't think that is necessarily the right thing to do. So that, I think, is you have to think about what is the implications for people, processes, et cetera, et cetera.
Stacy, Jules, thank you so much. Appreciate it.